In this video, we'll design our skill tree widget that will hold all the nodes, connections, and all other visual elements in our skilling system. So far, we've created the component which will be used to drive our skill tree system, added it to our player controller, and set the project defaults. Now we're going to create the widget which will hold all elements of our skill tree, the nodes and node connections. The widget itself will be fairly simple, basically a canvas panel with a background blur. However, we're also going to create a base widget class, which we will inherit from. The base widget class will contain all the functionality to automatically fade in and fade out when the widget is opened and closed. The reason we're doing it this way is because we'll be able to give any widget we create fade in and fade out functionality by also simply inheriting from that class. So in the Skill Tree Pro folder, we'll create a new folder and we'll call it widgets. And now we're going to create the base widget and the skill tree widget. So right click, user interface, widget blueprint, user widget, and this will be the base widget, WBP widget base. And then we'll right click again, user interface, widget blueprint. And now we're going to go to all classes and we're going to inherit from the class we just created, WBP widget base, select, and this is going to be WBP skill tree. We'll do the skill tree first, so open that up. And as we said, our skill tree widget itself is going to be pretty simple. We'll add in an overlay and then drag a background blur into the overlay. Also drag a canvas panel into the overlay and drag a normal text block into the canvas panel. And one more thing, just as a temporary measure, we're going to drag an image into the overlay as well. In the background blur, we can maximize the horizontal and vertical alignment so it takes up the whole screen. And we'll do the same for the canvas panel and the image. Rename the canvas panel to nodes canvas and we'll make it a variable. We'll also make the background blur a variable. And for the text, we'll rename the text to research points and make that a variable too. So everything is a variable except for the image and the overlay. For the research points, we will also come over to anchors, set it to the center, alignment 0.5, 0.5, size to content, and make sure to zero out the X and Y position. And now it's exactly in the center. And also we'll change a couple other things for later. The Z order will set to a high number like 20, so it's always in front. And the font, we'll make it a larger number like 72, letter spacing 50. And we'll open up the outline, make it 6, metered corners, separate fill alpha. These are settings for later that we'll see. You can change the text to 0. And if you want, you can F2 rename the background blur to just background blur. And that's all we need to do in our skill tree widget, so we can compile and close. Go back to the content browser, and we will right click on Skill Tree Pro, create a new folder and call it MISC data. And in this folder, we'll put interfaces and function libraries and structs and just miscellaneous things like that. And we'll go to blueprint interface, and we'll call this I base widget. And we'll open up the interface and we'll add two functions, one called fade in and another one called fade out then destroy. And we'll compile and save. And then in our base widget, we'll go over to the graph. Okay, and this spawned nodes. I don't prefer that. So before we continue, we can go into editor preferences. You can type in spawn default blueprint nodes and just uncheck this so it won't spawn these every time you create a new blueprint. It's kind of handy. And before we forget, we can also go into project settings and type in tick and come down here. Can blueprints tick by default? Turn this off in all of your projects. You only want blueprints ticking if it's a very specific choice that you make. Now we can add the interface that we just created. So come up to class settings and come down here to implemented interfaces and find I base widget. And you can see the two interface functions here. And we're just going to implement them, double click. And we'll do a set visibility and start it off at hidden. And then we'll set render opacity and start it off at 0. And we're going to add a few variables. We'll add in a fade in time, change that to a float. And we'll add a fade in delay. a fade out time, and a fade out delay. And so all the widgets that inherit from this, we can just set these. And for the fade in time, let's compile. We can set the default to 0.3 for the fade in and fade out time. And for the fade in delay, make it something incredibly small, 0.001, fade out delay 0.001. And this is a workaround for the way timers work, so it'll always just work. And we're gonna make 2 timers as well. Fade delay timer. We're gonna make it a timer handle. And duplicate this. I'm just using Control D, fade animation timer. Another timer handle. Compile. Now we'll come over here and we'll choose the fade delay timer. And we're gonna clear it. In case it's running when we call this function, we wanna clear all of our timers. So we'll clear this as well. And then we'll set timer by event. And this is going to be the fade delay timer here. Make a little space. And here's where we will put our fade and delay. I'm pressing Control left click. And we can add the delegate fade in animation. And here we're going to set timer by event. And this will be the fade in time. And it also wouldn't hurt to have another event down here called finished fade in animation. And here we're going to use the fade animation timer. And we're going to set visibility. Now to not hit testable self only. And the last thing we're going to do here is create an animation. So we'll come back to the designer, go into window animations if the tab's not already open, click on the widget base here, add an animation, call it fade in, click add here, add named widgets this, click the plus sign, come up to the top and search render and add render opacity. And we're going to set it to 0 at the beginning. And then after 1 second, we'll set it to 1. So now this whole widget is just fading in once this animation plays. We'll compile, come back to graph. Now we're going to open up the animations, drag the fade in, and we're going to do a play animation forward. Play animation forward, not play animation. And here we're going to take the fade in time, and we're going to divide, I'm just control dragging, we're going to divide 1 by the fade in time, and that will give the speed that we need for our animation. And now we're basically going to do the same thing in reverse. So we can implement the other interface, fade out then destroy, and we can copy this, copy paste this down here. We want to clear the timers in case they're running, and we can copy set the visibility. And we're going to change the visibility up front to not hit testable self and all children. And we're going to take the fade out delay, set timer by event, input this into the time, set the fade delay timer, implement a delegate, call it fade out animation. And we're going to set a timer by event again, just copying and pasting. And this is going to be the fade out time. We're going to drag in the fade animation timer here and set it as that. And now we're going to do a play animation reverse. We're going to drag in our fade animation. We can copy this because we're super duper lazy. And this time the difference is this is going to be the fade out time. Top one is fade in time, this one's the fade out time. And the benefit to using play animation forward and reverse is it just smoothly changes the direction of that animation. So if you're in the middle of it, it remembers the point that you're at and plays it in the other direction from there. So that's why we're doing it this way. And We'll just add another useful delegate here, finished fade out animation. When we finished it, we're going to set the visibility to hidden and remove from parent. And we can just comment this, Control C, animations. And just for fun, since it's a new project, I'm going to go into editor preferences and type in comment. And default comment node title color. I usually like it to be something a little bit darker, maybe like a 0.72 something down here. Now if we delete it and make a new comment, it's a little bit sleeker. We're going to call this animations, so we can compile close. Now in the next video, we'll implement a proper system for opening and closing the skill tree. But if you want to test out the functionality just to see what it looks like, you can add this code to your player controller. Just remember to delete this code after you test it out, because this is not the proper way to do things and it'll conflict with the code that we create in the next video. And then when we fire up our game, you can see it has that nice smooth fade in and fade out. Even if we spam the fade in, fade out, it doesn't interrupt the transition, and it just looks really nice. We can also go into the graph over here, and in the class defaults, we have control over the fading, so we could drag it way up, fire up the game, and then it has a nice slow fade in, quick fade out like that. And so the nice thing about this is that whichever widget class inherits from this base, you have complete control over the fading on it. So far we've created the component that will drive the system, and now the skill tree widget. In the next video, we'll start programming the functionality of the system, starting with how we call the tree to open or close, the input.